Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome. What a wonderful day it is to be together today. I am Reverend Karen Foster, and what a delight it is to welcome you to our Zoom worship today at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada. It is indeed an amazing day to be together, and we are so glad that you are here. Here in this place at UUFNN, whether you consider yourself to be part of Generation XYZ or Millennial or Baby Boomer or an oldie goldie, you are welcome here. No matter where you identify on the gender spectrum or the sexual orientation spectrum, whether you come from a religious background or no religious background, whether you have papers or not, you are welcome here. We recognize that it is our diversity that makes us rich, and we celebrate that we do not have to think alike to love alike. Just a couple of notes on Zoom for our worship this morning. You will be muted throughout the service, and you can feel free to comment in the chat box, and we'll especially use that during our time of joys and concerns. At the end of our service, you'll be invited on to coffee hour to have some conversations with wonderful folks in small groups. Once again, we're so delighted that you're here today. Welcome.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near.
In these days of continuing turmoil and uncertainty, we open our hearts and our minds and our spirits to being connected wherever we are. You're invited into this space with your whole self. You're invited to take a few deep breaths and settle in for a short while to be connected so that we can be encouragement and nurture for one another. I invite you to reach for your chalice that you may have nearby, and I invite you to light it at this time. As I offer our chalice lighting words. Through the mystery of time and space and the connection of community, may the light and warmth of each of our chalices reach us all wherever we are and remind us that we are each loved and that we are all connected. It's my great pleasure this morning to welcome Reverend Dave Clements to our worship. Dave has had a long career in human resources and fundraising and sales. And then just a few years ago, he went to seminary after experiencing a call to the ministry. And over the last few years, he's had a very positive impact as a professional interim minister with several Unitarian Universalist congregations. Dave and I met at a conference a few years ago and connected and found kindred spirits in each other. And upon connecting, we realized that we had known each other at the congregation I served in San Francisco during the age years. So Dave and I go back a long ways, and I have tremendous respect for his ministry. Dave had the opportunity to be an interim minister with a Unitarian congregation in South Africa a couple of years ago, and he brings today so many learnings from that time that apply to what we're experiencing in our culture today. And so it is my great, great delight to welcome Reverend Dave Clements to our worship today. Welcome, Dave. We're so glad to have you.
Well, thank you, Karen, and it's a great honor to be able to be here. I have known of your congregation. In fact, I have shared stories of determination and around the Black Lives Matter and how important it is signage to never give up. And so I just find it a great honor to be with you today. Hope that what I share with you will connect and that you will learn something from our time together. You know, having the opportunity to serve in South Africa was really a wonderful destination to arrive at. But what I really learned is that it was really the journey of being able to serve there where the real lessons and experiences happen. And I think those of you, when you go on a vacation and you plan and you finally arrive at your destination and it's really wonderful, but the real memories you have of what occurred while you're there and what happened. And so in my experience in South Africa, I wish to share to you a part of that journey and kind of give you a little bit of background. A lot of people don't recognize that the Unitarian Church does exist outside of the United States and Canada. In fact, the Unitarian Church in South Africa is over 150 years old. And Unitarianism came to South Africa in kind of an unusual way. The Reverend David Farrar was studying in England to be a minister for the Dutch Reformed Church. And in his studying, he came across a lot of writings of some Unitarians that had to deal with the concept of a free church and an opportunity to search for truth and meaning without dogma, without all the things that were typically attracted to a regular church. And so he embraced that, and he went home to preach his sermon that he had to give in front of his candidacy to become a minister for the Dutch Reformed Church. And he talked about liberal religion, and he talked about the opportunity to free in choice without dogma. And of course, he was denied opportunity to be accepted into the Dutch Reformed Church. But at that particular sermon, there were over 35 people who gathered, who embraced what he had to say. And there he formed a congregation called the Free Protestant Church. And after 5 years, it connected with the Unitarians in England and became known as the Cape Town Unitarian Church. They purchased a building, which was an old warehouse, which they are still in today. And so I share that with you in the sense that they have had a positive effect in South Africa. In fact, I feel it a great honor that others have gone there to serve. Victor Carpenter, who passed away a couple of years ago, early in his ministerial career, went to South Africa. And he was there during a lot of the apartheid years and opened the church to anyone, regardless of their racial ethnicity, and also what their standing was economically. And at the time, that was against the law, but he did it anyway. And so the Unitarians in South Africa have had a strong impact on racial justice. In fact, if you go into the history books, and you'll find the day when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, there was a demonstration that it was occurring out in front of Desmond Tutu's church. And the mayor of Cape Town had just been elected, Mayor Gordon, and he was also a Unitarian. And so he asked the Unitarians to join him in a demonstration. And as you go into the newsreels and you'll see a line of white people behind this sea of African Americans or Africans, and that was the Unitarian Church. And so one of the exciting things was, once I got there, to really connect into their history and to realize that they have had an impact all of these 150 years and still have an impact today in South Africa. When I started serving in Cape Town, I had no idea of the wonderful experiences that awaited me. But truly, there were many things that I learned. But one of the first things was really to enjoy the moment and learn how to be in the present moment. This is something that South Africans taught me over and over and over again, and has come in very useful during this time of this pandemic, where we've spent a lot of time at home and had to find out how to enjoy the moment and to do ministry. But in regards to that, while I was there, I got contacted in the fall of 2017 by a Unitarian choir director in San Francisco from the Unitarian Church. And he had shared with me that his choir was touring South Africa and that they would be wanting to stop in Cape Town, and could we embrace them and work with them, and at the same time, could our choir sing with them? I said, well, yes, we'd love to. Of course, at the time, we did not even have a choir. The Cape Town Unitarians is a small congregation of about 100 members, and out of that, there's probably about 65 who are active. But I remember going back and standing in front of the congregation and telling them about the experience, and we asked for volunteers to join a choir, and we formed a small choir of about 20 members. And in that choir were two members, Celeste and Shelley, whose tribal was Zulu. And they said, if we're going to sing, we must sing the song Siyahamba, and we must sing it in the Zulu language. Now, many of you might not have known, but that song is actually in our teal hymnal. And so we practiced and we practiced. And the time came and the choir came, and as we started the service and I announced for our choir to stand up and sing the song Siyahamba, many members began to sing through the first verse. And as the second verse came around, the choir joined in singing. And as the third verse came around, everyone in that small chapel sang the words of Siyahamba. And so I talk about being in the moment. I realized that in that moment, there was people who had gone before, the leaders, the members, and here we were as united Unitarians singing a song that brought everybody together regardless of their culture, regardless of their social economic background, to sing and to praise and to celebrate the joy of community. A little background on the song Siyahamba. It actually is a Zulu folk tune, and it was written by a Zulu who was part of another church. And it was written as a means to repeat the words over and over again so that as they went around, the community that sang it together could actually call out and be a sense of community. And so in South Africa, it's very well known and sang, but it's also sang as a way to unite and to gather together and to celebrate the joy of being in community. And so as we sang that song that day, it was wonderful to be in community and to recognize how music can and does connect all of us. Another experience, in a minute we'll have a chance to listen to the musical rendition of Siyahamba. But another experience that I'll share briefly with you is as we were preparing for that, you have to visualize this. It's a small church building, so small there's not even a minister's office. We have one big room, a small room at the back, and another room for a restroom. And so we had to figure out a way in which we could put 50 members of this choir and at least 50 members of the congregation all in one place. And so we brought in chairs and everything else, and people banded together and the community came. And not only did we have the building filled, but we also had people hanging in the outside on the sidewalk, waiting to get in and to hear and to witness a Unitarian choir and to be part of this community. And so one of the lessons I learned from that is the importance of community. And the Unitarian Church understands community as they come together of various tribes. South Africa is composed of 14 different tribes. 14 different languages are recognized. Most people speak 3 languages, their tribal language, Afrikaans, as well as English. And so one of the things that I was struck with is, as I worked with this congregation, is these different cultures coming together out of mutual respect and understanding and being able to do work. And in my next part of my sermon, I will share with you something, a way in which they greet each other, which I think has relevance to how we can work together today in the challenges that we face here in America. But I invite you now to listen and to enjoy the musical rendition of Siyahamba.
Siya hambet ku kan nyanyi
This is a time in our service when we have the opportunity to share of the resources of our hearts and our lives with one another. Since we're not physically together to pass the basket, we can give in several other ways. You can text 73256 and put UUFNN in the message box so that you can participate in text giving. You can also mail a check to 780 Del Monte Lane, and the address is on your screen. The most convenient way that you can give is to sign up for automatic giving, and you can contact the office for an automatic draft authorization form. Our Share the Plate is the fund that Action has established for our undocumented neighbors. Our undocumented neighbors are not participating in any of the stimulus or assistance programs. And so would they have a fund that is available for undocumented folks who are in need of assistance. So we want to be as generous as we can for that Share the Plate opportunity. I wanted to say to you also that, you know, in these days in which we're living, our connections are so important. We need our spiritual community so much more than ever. And I'm so proud of all of the ways that you have been staying connected, taking care of each other, contacting each other, encouraging one another. I'm so proud of all that our community is doing so that we can continue our justice work, and so that in this time in which we're living, in which a new day is being birthed, we can participate in facilitating that new birth. Thank you so much for your generosity to keeping our community going and thriving and supporting our beloved community. Thank you for participating in our offering. I invite you to join me in the offering dedication. To the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings.
So the song Siyahamba, the Zulu translation we listen to, Siyahamba kuka yeni quinquos, Siyahamba kuka yeni quinquos. But the words in English, we are marching in the light of truth, in the light. And one of the lessons that I learned from South African congregation is how they greet each other. They greet each other with a word that is a part taken from Zulu. And the word is sabuona. Now, literally, it means I see you. You are important to me, and I value you. In a way, to make the other person visible and to accept them as they are with their virtues, nuisances, flaws. And then in response to that greeting, what people usually say is Shaboka, which means I exist for you. And my Zulu members in the Cape Town, South Africa taught me this. In other words, all my attention is with you. I see you. I allow myself to discover your needs, to see your fears, to identify your mistakes and accept them, and I accept you for what you are, as you are a part of me. Now, as we think about that, and we apply it to our current situation of the racial injustice which is happening in our country, if we could all practice as we greet each other, not the typical, hello, how are you? But to really practice, I see you, I'm here for you. How can I help you? And therein lies one of the greatest lessons that I learned in South Africa, because that greeting in itself symbolizes the importance of turning our attention to another person. It reminds us to understand that without prejudice and to have grudges and to leave them behind. The term reminds us to be aware of people's needs and to give importance to individuals within a group. It also helps to think about how we integrate together as communities and value them. Celeste and Shelley were part of the Zulu tribe. We also had people who were part of the other tribe in Xhosa, called Xhosa. In South Africa, as I mentioned, there are 14 tribes. Zulu and Xhosa are the largest of them. And so most likely in a day-to-day contact, especially in Cape Town and Johannesburg, which tend to be the cities, you will come in contact with people who either from Zulu or Xhosa. But those families in the church not only taught all of the members, but they also taught me that culture is about accepting each other. And that it's more satisfying to forgive others of mistakes that they make and look for ways in which you can support each other. They were great in teaching me the greeting, and it was wonderful as I walked down the street and I could look at people and look them in the eye and say that greeting. Number one, they were completely surprised because what is this white American male saying this? And many times I got corrected in the pronunciation. But the fact remains is there was a sense of connection. And so will always be grateful to Celeste and Shelley for opening my eyes, but I'll particularly be grateful for John Claude, who really became my real teacher. Now, John Claude was a refugee from Burundi, and he was young and had a family, and he had joined the Unitarian Church in Burundi. And he had been one of the government officials, and there had a coup, and the government changed hands. And the new leaders came in and outlawed the Unitarian Church, took the minister and put him in jail, disbanded the congregation. And John Claude had to flee for his life, for there was a price on his head because he was from the former government leadership. And so he ended up being a refugee in South Africa, in Cape Town. And I had the opportunity to meet him and to work with him. Now, where John Claude lived in the area of Cape Town extends, you have the inner city, and then you have probably 95 square miles that go around. Many years ago, they annexed all of the other cities and communities, and it's part of Cape Town, but they're still like individual neighborhoods. And so he lived in a neighborhood that was very segregated. In fact, you knew as you drove down the main street, that on one side was people of color, on the other side were white. And I traveled there to meet him because public transportation was not always the best for him to get, and it was easier for me to drive there and to meet with him. And so as I was walking down the street on this one particular day, and I noticed others coming before me, and I had on my shoulder my carrying satchel, and it was my laptop and other items. As I saw these people coming, I immediately thought, oh, I need to watch my satchel, and I held it closer because it's not safe here. I went and met with John Claude, and for the rest of the day as I came back, I pondered upon that experience. I had always prided myself as being very open to all cultures. My mother had worked with my sister and I to kind of teach us that. And I had many friends of people of color. But here I responded in a way that became a bias as I began to look at it. I did not know that that community was not a safe place. I did not know that those people that were approaching me were not safe. But my bias allowed me to pass a judgment upon them, and I acted accordingly. And as I began to sit with that, I wondered about the biases that I had that I didn't recognize that I had until then. And the rest of my time in South Africa, I worked on that. And as I would meet people, I would look them in the eye and practice the Zulu greeting, but not passing judgment. And as I continued to go back into John Claude's neighborhood, I was able to walk down the street feeling safe, but being able to greet and connect people and to see them where they were at without judgment, without any kind of preconceived idea or notion. And I thought, how can we break that back into America in our racial justice work as we work with individuals and communities? Well, I had an experience when I was in Peoria as I served as their senior interim minister, and we were in a social justice meeting. And myself, Linda, who is a person of color, was my associate minister. And we sat in the meeting and we were talking about a meeting that was coming up in about 2 months where the assistant director of the EPA was coming to Peoria to talk to both faith leaders as well as community members about ideas they might have about the funds that had been acquired because the coal power fire plant had finally been closed, and the people in there had gone to court, and it was decided that they needed to pay back into the community $4.5 million. And so this EPA chief was coming to discuss that. And as they were talking, they were saying about how wonderful it is and how we needed to get a lot of representatives from the congregation. And then someone asked the question, well, where is the meeting being held? And another person said, oh, it's being held on the south side. Now, the south side of Peoria, first off, is a very segregated city, and the south side is where people of color live. And it just so happens that they said, well, it's on the south side. And someone said, well, that's not safe. I don't feel safe going there. Is it going to be at night? Because if it's night, I won't go. And someone said, well, no, it's going to be in the daytime. And they said, well, I guess it would be all right if we carpool. And I was sitting there next to my associate minister, who's Linda, who actually lives on the south side in a very safe neighborhood, in a very clean neighborhood. And so I stopped and I said, wait a minute. Let's talk about what you're just saying. Linda lives in the neighborhood and you're talking about her neighborhood. And there was a silence that fell across the room. And then the subject was changed. However, a few months later, same people that were in that pulled Linda and I aside and said, thank you for helping us to recognize some of our unconscious biases that we didn't even realize that we have. And so as we, as a people of faith, as we move forward in these times, I applaud each of you this day to look at the biases that you don't realize that you have. The things that unconsciously in your mind, you begin to pass judgment without even knowing the story or the history. And that bias comes from an indoctrination way back, who knows where. But we need to learn to deal with our biases if we're going to be effective in our racial justice work. Because as we begin to realize all that people have been saying, people of color, is that Black Lives Matter because we have institutional racism that discriminates, that does everything else to say to them, your life does not matter, it's not important. And so John Claude opened my mind to that, and I will always be thankful and grateful to him. And now that I'm back in the United States and working and soon to start another adventure in Bloomington, Indiana with a congregation that is welcoming and excited to have me come, I can't help but think that as Unitarians, this is our time. This is our time to step forward, to be the community that we say that we are, to be welcoming, to love, to model what it means to be a beloved community. And I know from your history, from having to put up a Black Lives banner 12 times, that you are a community that bounds together. You are a community that recognizes the importance of this work. And so I applaud you. And I'm thankful for you and the work that you're doing in Northern Nevada. But I also ask you that you might look inward and look at the biases that you don't know you have, so that you can continue when you look at people to say, I see you, I'm here for you, I support you. Because when we really talk about beloved community as Unitarians, that is the community that we are talking about. One of the joys of serving in South Africa allowed me to go to other parts of Africa. And I will tell you that Africa is prime to embrace Unitarianism. Universalism does not exist outside of the United States because Universalism was an answer to Calvinism. And so Unitarianism is strong throughout the world, but particularly in Africa. I went to Kenya, and there in Kenya, they now have 35 congregations that are lay-led. Burundi hopes to someday, with a change of government, open up and be able to establish their congregation. In Uganda, there's a congregation that has to meet in secret because the government does not declare them as official religion. But the members, what they have in common in Africa is a strong sense of community, a strong sense of support, a strong sense of recognizing that they're in this together and that together they will be able to accomplish that. And so what we have in the United States, may we learn from Africa, and may we accomplish and take that into our lives. And is my prayer today, and so thankful for this wonderful opportunity that has changed my life, to be able to live in South Africa, to work in South Africa, to learn from a people of really what it means to build a beloved community. I challenge each of you to address your biases, to look at people and to see who they are, heart to heart. We can do this as a faith, and we will do this, and we need to do this in order for us to continue to make the world a beloved community. May it be so, and blessed be.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give.
We join now together for our time of community prayer and meditation. And as we do that today, I want you to imagine that we are all together in a physical space, joining hands, and visualize that just as if we were together, because we are connected in our spirits and our hearts as one. So invite us to live into that during our time together today. We want to hold in our hearts today all those who are struggling, all those who are grieving, all those who are feeling sad and depressed. We hold in our heart Kristen Montan, who is in the hospital. We hold in our hearts all of those who are fearful of the virus, suffering from the virus, and those who have lost people. We bring together today whatever is on our hearts. We can bring to this community wherever it is that we are, and we can bring even those prayers that are so deep we have no words. And so we gather those all together in these moments. We bring forth our joys and our celebrations, our concerns and our sorrows. And you're invited for the next few moments to place those in the chat box during this time of prayer and meditation. We gather together all of our prayers as one, and we hold them all in the heart of love. And it's our way in this community of saying to one another, I see you, I hear you, I am here for you. I invite you to take a moment and offer this gesture as a way of saying that. Place one hand on your heart, and the other hand offers energy and love to the community. As a response to all of these prayers and concerns and joys that we hold, it is our way of saying to one another, I see you, I hear you. We are here for each other. Blessed be, and amen.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me commitment, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love.
We want to thank you so much for joining us for our service today. A special thank you to Reverend Dave Clements for being with us today and for sharing so eloquently of your experiences from South Africa, Dave. Thank you so much. Please do watch your emails for all of the connection programming that we have available in these days. And there's an email that comes out especially on Mondays. I think I forgot to say at the beginning of our service that if you are a newcomer with us, you go to the link that's in the chat box and you can fill out some information about yourself, just your contact information, so that we can help you get to know us better and that we can offer any support to you that you might need. If you know of folks who are needing support, or if you are, either with Zoom or other electronics or any kind of support at all, we would like to know that so that we can be in touch with you. And by the same token, if you know folks across the country or locally who would benefit by being a part of this connection on Sunday mornings, part of our community, please do share our worship contact info with them. Our community is growing and enlarging because of that, and we have many folks that we've not had the opportunity to meet yet in person, which is a great joy. And so I invite you to continue to share that information so that we can extend our community. You're invited to stay on after our closing song for coffee hour conversations. You'll be broken up into small groups, and you're invited to stay on for that. Now let's return once again our closing song, Sia Hamba. Please join in. Beloveds, you are seen, you are heard, you are loved. May you have the courage to go from this place today and extend that message to others, even in those places where it is not easy. You are seen, you are heard, and you are loved, and you are not alone. Blessed be, and amen.